Hey, everybody, welcome to this week's show. Want to know more about the DVC Towers coming to the Disneyland Hotel? We're going to talk about that next. Hey, everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the DVC Show, coming to you from the Bob Varley Studio in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Pete Werner, joined via Skype this week by my good friends from the DVC store, Mr. Jerry Saito.
Hello, everybody.
Along with Mr. Paul Krieger.
Hey, everyone.
And our producer, Mr. Corey Fiescanaro.
Welcome home.
And just a reminder, folks, this show is brought to you by DVCstore.com. If you're looking to buy a DVC resale or you're looking to sell your contract, maybe upgrade to something else, give them a call, 1-800-550-6493, or visit them on the web at dvcstore.com. Now, this week, we got some information recently. There was I think Paul described it as a data dump by Disney of their plans for the very much anticipated tower that's going to be built at the Disneyland Hotel. Now, just a little bit of background. Some of you may remember Disney was planning to build this 5-star resort in this bizarre place between downtown Disney in Anaheim and the Disneyland Hotel. It was going to be a big deal. It was going to be ridiculously expensive. And because of political fighting between Disneyland and the Anaheim City Council, those plans ended up getting completely scrapped. Now, in its place, Disney has decided to do this, build a DVC tower at the Disneyland Hotel. And the minute they announced that they were going to do this, people kind of lost their minds, me included. I love Disneyland, period. I love Disneyland Hotel. I love DVC. So this is just phenomenal. But we didn't have a lot of details until recently. And Paul, of course, wrote a great article on dvcfan.com. We'll have a link to that in the description just below this video that outlines everything. So let's talk about this. They are. We know now that the pod format of rooms is now a thing for good. They introduced the Tower Studios at Riviera, and people really seem to respond well. They're doing the same thing here, although the word pod is showing up. I don't know why, but 38 Tower Studio style villas, 253 dedicated studios, one dedicated one-bedroom villa.
So weird.
You can't make this stuff up. 18 two-bedroom lock-off villas, which is a deluxe studio and a one-bedroom. 20 dedicated two-bedroom villas and 2 grand villas. So obviously, the bulk of the rooms here are going to be these deluxe studios. But deluxe studios at this property are only going to sleep 4 people, which I thought is pretty interesting. So, Paul, as you took a look at all of this stuff, what was it that was that stuck out to you?
So a couple things jumped out right off the bat. The first, like you said, they're going all in with this studio concept. In my mind, they're thinking that those visiting Disneyland maybe are going to be more weekend guests or 4-day stays. We're not looking at the traditional week-long or 10-day stays that people are doing over in Walt Disney World. So maybe you don't need as much room for those stays. But we've got basically almost 290 rooms of this resort are going to be studio style rooms to some degree. A couple of things when you actually get into the room itself that are important to note. This is not stated anywhere in all of the materials that we pulled from the City of Anaheim's website, but it appears that most likely we're going to see a similar Murphy style pull down bed featured in both the deluxe studio and the pod or tower studio style rooms. The biggest thing that sort of points out at that is the 4-person occupancy in the deluxe studio. You would have 2 in the primary bed and then pull down that other bed, and that would give us occupancy for 2 other guests. The other big thing to note, there are no balconies in any of the pod or deluxe studio rooms. All of those rooms will not feature a balcony. Balconies will only be featured once we get into the 1-bedroom and up style of the resort.
Yeah, but that's not unusual for Disneyland Hotel. Very, very few of the rooms at the Disneyland Hotel have balconies. Even concierge level rooms at the Disneyland Hotel do not have balconies. There is the Frontier Tower, I believe it is. The very top floor of that tower, and I believe one of the other towers too, the very top floors do have balconies on them. I was lucky enough to get one of those rooms once, but the vast majority of rooms at the Disneyland Hotel don't have them.
It fits with the Disneyland Hotel style very much, but I think it's a first when it comes to DVC. I don't know of any other properties where we don't have balconies. So that was just a note that I made regarding the rooms themselves. I think one of the biggest takeaways that I had from all of the information that the City of Anaheim provided, essentially they're providing this now because today, the day that we are recording this, which is July 20th, they are voting to approve the final site plan and basically push this thing a little bit further to getting off the ground. So that's why all of this was put out there. But there is a lot of information and a lot of data that was put out that sort of talks about the surrounding neighborhoods. Like Pete mentioned earlier, there was a lot of infighting between Disney and the City of Anaheim for many years. It seems like we're putting some of that in the past. Disney has done a lot of studying and provided a lot of documentation that outlines how is this building going to visually affect the neighbors that are about a block over from Walnut Street. I noted specifically, there is even a study that is in this report about trash trucks and what way they will turn and what streets they will go down. So Disney really did the due diligence and did their part in making sure that this wasn't going to maybe affect the surrounding neighborhoods all that much.
Well, let's just to give some context on the battle. For many, many years, the relationship between Disneyland and the City of Anaheim was excellent. Then Michael Colglazer came in as president of Disneyland. And at the same time, I'm not blaming Colglazer for this entirely, but at the same time, a few seats on the city council switched to people who were campaigned on that we give too much to Disneyland. They're not giving enough back to the City of Anaheim. We need to start cracking down on them. And Colglazer, these guys got elected, and they kind of butted heads with Colglazer, which made the planning for that new resort virtually impossible because the city was holding their feet to the fire on everything. And then Colglazer went to the farm where Disney executives are allowed to run free. I've mentioned this a few times. If you see a Disney executive goes to anything international operations, worldwide operations, they're being put out to pasture. And just last week, it was announced that Colglazer, who had been moved to international operations, is now going to be the president of Virgin Galactic. So now Disney has taken to shooting their executives that they don't want anymore out into space. So that's when when Colglazer left, that's when Josh D'Amaro came in. And Josh D'Amaro was sent in there to fix this. And he did. He worked out things with the city council, made nice with them, played the game because Josh is brilliant. Josh, of course, now president or chairman of Disney Parks and Resorts in Burbank. And so I think that's one of the reasons they're able to move forward with this, is that Josh kind of fixed that relationship to some degree. And so now they're able to do this. Go ahead, Fiasco, you got your hand up.
Yeah, so I was looking through this information last night and looking through Paul's article. And, what really struck me was it looks like to me that they're trying to get as many rooms out of this project as possible. And to me, that immediately had my head going to, okay, so you're a DVC member that wants to vacation to Disneyland. Your options are the Grand Californian. And then looking further at the Grand Californian, they only have about 50 dedicated DVC rooms, which is actually the smallest amount of dedicated DVC rooms in the resorts. So availability in Disneyland right now for DVC wanting to stay at DVC,
non-existent.
It's kind of a nightmare. So this is a huge relief to that, almost like increasing the amount of rooms available by like 6 times, almost, maybe more. So that's really what stuck with me.
No, it's definitely, and I'll tell you, as soon as they open this up for sale, you're going to open your window and you're going to hear a noise. And that is the sound of all this money sucking out to California from the DVC fans, myself included, who are absolutely buying in out there. Absolutely going to buy in. Jerry, what was the price? Do you remember what the price was on Grand California when it first?
Oh, it was under $100 a point, or right at $100 a point when it first hit the market. Yeah.
And when was that? When did that become a thing?
2010 is when they opened the resort. So
okay, so my point being, in 2010 it was under $100 a point for Grand California, or maybe even a little over. Routinely on the resale market, Grand California selling for $220 a point. Same thing's going to happen with this. So, and all the veteran DVC fans know it. And the minute these are open for sale, this is going to break a record for selling out a DVC property. It is going to break a record. It is going to be huge. What do you think? Let's take some guesses here. All DVC members here on the show. What do we think the opening price is going to be?
I mean, I know currently Disney's priced $195 per point. In 3 years, when this is projected to potentially be open, I mean, they do multiple price increases. I mean, this may sound absurd, but I would say north of $250 a point easily. I think $250, $260 per point.
I'm going to go a little bit lower, Bob. I'm going to say $225. Not to shoot over here on the prices, right? But I think I say $225 basically because I think the effects of the pandemic that we're currently going through are going to play a real role as to what they need to do in terms of pricing. Even though this is an exciting property, even though a lot of people are going to buy it, it is still going to need to be sellable, essentially, to Walt Disney World guests, just like Alani is currently,
I disagree.
Which is still struggling.
I disagree. Look, I think the dynamic's different in California. Unlike Florida, the vast majority of Disneyland's foot traffic are locals. And I think, I mean, I don't know this, but I would guess the overwhelming majority of owners at Grand Californian are locals. Virtually every person I know that owns a Grand Californian lives there. So they don't have to sell this to Walt Disney World. They don't. They'll get some. But what they're going to be dealing with are the current owners at Grand Californian who are fed up with having to literally walk their reservations to get the dates they want and the room types they want because the availability is so bad. So I think you're going to see a lot of them buying this property, buying this Disneyland DVC. I think I'm going to go right between you two. I think that we're going to talk about 235 a point is my guess. It's going to be in that range. Fiasco, what do you think?
I'd like to lock in, if we're playing prices right, at 235 and 1 penny.
You're fired.
Should have just said $1. $1.
Yeah, right.
It's very interesting. Very, very, very interesting. How that's, I can't wait. I just, the minute they open that up for sale, I'm in. The minute they open that up for sale. Anybody else here going to buy out there?
I would heavily consider it, especially that it's going to be for sale probably in about 3-ish years. I would heavily consider it, and I really love Disneyland, so it would give me more reason to head out there more often. So
just like a side note.
All right, one at a time. Jerry, go ahead.
I was going to say, as a side note, there are people that are lined up to buy Grand California that is completely sold out, and they don't actually have you. They won't put you on a wait list. But there are people that are just lined up to buy Grand Cal. It's sold out. And Disney's sticker price, if they became available, would be $260 a point. And they have a line out the door that just they can't fulfill. So, again, I say north of 250 because they can get it. So anyway, just food for thought. That's what I had to check the number because I did think it was over 250 and it's 260.
But I think the difference here is that you're talking about an occasional contract that becomes available for them to sell direct at Grand Californian. They have to they have to sell several million points with this new tower. And is the market going to bear that? Is the market going to bear that? And that remains to be seen. That remains to be seen at that price point. Because if it is 265, I would have to think twice about it. But Paul, you were going to say something.
That's sort of, Amy and I discussed this over the weekend a lot about what we would do. And it becomes a question of which resort we like a little bit more. And still, even after we've seen all this information, I still prefer Grand Californian. So I would be curious to see, as we're discussing now, what is this going to do to the price of Grand Californian? And could we maybe sneak in a small add-on contract there? Because the other thing is there's going to be a minimum buy-in. And I imagine they might set that a little bit higher than normal as well to get more money out of owners here at the new tower. So until we begin to know a little bit more about point charts and what it's going to look like to stay in this tower, I almost would say that I would lean more towards looking to see what Grand Californian does at that time and potentially get an add-on contract there.
That's a good point, because I wonder, are Grand Californian owners going to sell? Going to look to dump that and use that money to buy over at Disneyland? I don't know, because Grand Californian people in general don't like the Disneyland Hotel. They don't want to stay there. So I don't know. It really depends. It really, really depends. The Grand Californian is in my top 3 now. Is in my top 3 Disney resorts in the world that I've been to. Just Shanghai and Hong Kong are the only ones I haven't been to. But Grand California is a stunning property, absolutely stunning property, and it's access to the parks. I mean, again, we're talking about, Disneyland's not that big, so walking from the Disneyland Hotel versus walking from the Grand California, not a massive deal, but it's still closer, and there are perks that go along with staying there. So, Jerry, do you think you'll see that? Do you think you'll see a lot of as the Disneyland Tower gets ready to start selling? Do you think you're going to see a lot of people start dumping their Grand Californian contracts?
I don't. I didn't even think about it until Paul, you mentioned that Grand Cal might be like the I don't want to say the more desirable of the two, but the fact that it is tied to the Grand California and people love that property, maybe they get a look at the tower and they say, you know what, I kind of like what I already have. So I don't think they'll dump to jump ship, But if it comes out that the resort is spectacular and they did an amazing job, yeah, maybe. But I think, you know, the people that buy Grand Cal, they love Grand Cal, and it'll have to be something very special for them to jump and go to the other, you know, to sell the rebuy.
Yeah, I think the amenities factor is where I come from on that a little bit. We haven't gotten into that too much yet, but according to the information released, all that is going to be built alongside with this property is a new pool and splash play area. This looks to be coming right out of the ink and paint line that they're currently promoting within the parks. The pool itself sort of looks like a paint palette in its design. With that, there's going to be a pool bar. But other than those amenities, everything else is going to be what you currently have at the Disneyland Hotel. So you are now putting all of that added stress on the other restaurants and stuff. I think of Trader Sam's. It may make that basically impossible to get into many days. It basically is already.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
So
I was just going to say, yeah.
So that's again, that's where I think for Amy and I, it becomes a little bit more desirable to stay at Grand Californian if those prices bear it once this comes online.
Now, Jerry, when do you think they'll start selling contracts?
They do a pre-sale for existing DVC members. So if it's slated to open, let's say, I don't know, July of 2023, they'll probably start pre-sales, you know, slightly ahead of that. So relative to that, you know, from what I see in the article, 2023 is the slated date. So, you know, a few months before the scheduled opening date.
All right. Well, should be interesting. Can't wait. I cannot wait. Very, very excited about that. Very excited. So, all right, folks, that's going to do it for this week's episode of our show. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you again next time with another edition of the DVC Show. Have a great week.